with the accumulation rates of the thickened bottom sludge and its characteristic from the water-based sanitation, which is very much different from the presentation by Kitty, which is more or less on the VIP or the pit latrine. In our system in Southeast Asia, we perhaps a bit lucky, we have more water to use, and then that's why we very much rely on these water flushing toilets. So anyway, in the presentation we will give the introduction, and then that's the come to the things like the black water, which is come to our toilets, and then our toilets having this kind of the decentralized wastewater treatment system, which is not a pit latrine anymore. We are proudly present, and I mean in Thailand at least that 99% make the toilets. And most of the toilets installed with this kind of system, starting from the single cesspool, which is cement rings, and then install underneath the toilets. Either it is a water flushing or the pour toilet. So after that, we have a bit better improvement, so-called the double cesspool, which is the first part that's to receive, and then another part that to have another cesspool that having the better percolations of the toilet wastewater. And then after that, we also improved to have the man-made cement septic tank, which is very much similar to the concept of the septic tank, but a bit bigger. And then try to have this kind of watertight cement system or the reactor, which is so-called as a septic tank. And then nowadays becoming more popular to use, especially for the new household, to use a kind of a commercial plastic type system, which is we are one of the exporter of this kind of system to the region, to the other countries. So still you can see that we have 84% that relies on this kind of very simple cesspool, even if we are saying that we have a very good toilets. So far we still have the big problem that having this kind of 20% of our wastewater that's going to the treatment plant, even if we are saying that we have the toilets, but still remains that the rest going to this kind of no way to dump. Even if we say that we have the toilets, but no way to treat the fecal sludge matter or the septage from the cesspool, the septic tank properly yet. So our objective of this study is that to describe the characteristic of the fecal sludge, and then to define a certain correlation, not of course in the modeling approach as Kitty said, but we try to explain in terms of the quality and quantity of these, and as well as the other factors that influence the fecal sludge accumulation in the septic tank, in the cesspool system. So we have many surveys throughout the region in Thailand, from the north to the northeast, and as well as to the center of Bangkok, not very in the center, but the peri-urban of Bangkok city, which we have studied. So we're starting from that Nonthaburi, which is quite densely, is more or less similar to that the Bangkok populations. Even if we are saying that we have a sewer in Bangkok, but people in Thailand still use the cesspool before connect to the sewer system. That's quite strange. But of course, this is happening in Southeast Asia, not only in Thailand, in many other countries, from Indonesia, from Vietnam. Even if we say we have a sewer system, but we have the septic tank remain for that, for the collecting of the toilet wastewater anyway. So we also conduct the research in the northern part of Thailand, Lampang province, which is a bit low populations, and then to the Ratchaburi province to the east, that close to the Myanmar countries, that our neighboring country, that on the low or the rural areas, and then having another newly developed city that from the northeastern part of Thailand as well to compare. So we have conduct an intensive survey to have investigation of the septic tank, and then conduct also that measurement in the vacuum trucks as well. That and then we also need to measure the liquid parts, and then the suction process, and then also, of course also that the finishing and washing. We also try to conduct all these kind of collections. So one of the things, one of the points which is could be different from the Kitty research or her team that research that we have plenty of water inside the tank. It's not that having only the sludge or the solid part, but plenty of that, maybe 80-90% of that the content inside our pit or inside our tank is that mostly so-called the SuSanA tank or the liquid parts. So that's why we have to different the samples to at least two parts. What this is a SuSanA tank part, and then also the thickened bottom sludge layer part, and then we measure or investigate the quality of that. And then you can see from the right hand side that we have do a very simple techniques that using the clothes attached to the stick, and then to notice that what is the level of that the bottom sludge, and then to know that how much the volume inside the tank if we know the size, and then we can notice from the depth of the sludge, which is some household is quite simple, and some household is not that easy at all to collect and then to find out the openness. And then with that we also to think of that well, once we pumping out or emptying the sludge by the trucks, mostly in Thailand we use the trucks to empty the septic tank or the cesspool, and very few for that manual emptying services. Then we try to mix with this proportion, that the SuSanA tank or the liquid portion, and with the thickened sludge portion, and then to represent and also to compare with the sludge that collect from the septic trucks. And then after that we found some certain problem, and then we invent another sampling methods that I just like to share with you with the simple transparent tube, and then with that we just can collect, and then you can notice from the right hand side that we can collect and notice what are the bottom sludge. And nowadays we also continue exploring or the investigation at the site from the other projects that we try to do the characteristics of this fecal sludge. Then the fecal sludge management, mostly I said to you that the urban areas mostly relies on the septic trucks or the emptying trucks, but only few areas in the rural where they don't have any trucks, they still use manual emptying services. And then in the rural area with no drainage in very few areas, that we still use that, we relies on the septic on the cesspool system. And then from the typical man-made that we use is that for the drainage system, that from the effluent part, because we rely on that the water base or the water flushing toilets, we have a lot of that drainage. Only the population through the soil may not be enough. Then the effluent from the cesspool or the septic tank have to connect to the drainage system. That's why one of our problem to manage the centralized municipal wastewater treatment system is that too low BOD concentrations. That because of that, the majority of the pollutants is kept in the septage, kept in the fecal sludge matter. So that's the situation that we have. And then we also have found that the effects of the types and the locations from the twice of that where they are, and then perhaps not related to the geological condition yet. We just found out that okay, from the type, from the location, from the land use, and as well as the soil type, is a clay soil, a loamy soil, or the sandy soils, which is have effects on the emptying periods as well, which is also indicate that, but more or less it's more the same. And the highest one could be at the rural area with having the sandy soil. You can notice that it is sandy soil, and then they have easily percolation to the ground. Then there's no problem for the people. And they just wait until it's fulfilled, and then they just out for the emptying services. But whereas the others very much depend on the area, the groundwater levels, the types, or connect with or with a connection to the drainage system. Then from that we also try to define the fecal sludge production rate per liter per capita per year. That based on calculation, based on the result we found that from different kind of the septic tank system or cesspool system, it could be ranging from 200 to up to 1,600. Very much depend on the content, depend on the factors that we going to discuss. Which is first thing is that the soil types, as I mentioned to you, as well as the locations. Then the urban area that we found could be the highest. That could be due to that very high groundwater and the clay soil, and then also that the production rate also very much depend on the emptying period as well as the stabilization and biodegradation rate in that site. So with that, we also try to link to that the rate of the sludge accumulation, which could be the good ideas for the use that if you would like to design the Faecal Sludge Management, then what are the Faecal Sludge production, but this is only for the water-based toilet system. Then we also define that the commercial treatment package, mostly we found that they can cause the highest thickened bottom sludge. From that point of view, you can notice from the black strip of in the figures that it would be about that 50%. So if we found, we noticed that if the user found out that this kind of 50%, then they start to ask for the service, whereas the other is not yet. They just fulfill with even with the liquids, but they request the services already. And also that could be because in the commercial package it has no leakage, no percolation on the ground, under the ground to the soil. Then they may have more often, and then the thickened sludge has more accumulation faster. So that could be the indication, and then the other ones that the selection of the level could be removed from the solid tank, and then there will be the large impacts to the large factors. So we found from this kind of the plots to say that the longer the emptying period requires by the on-site system, then the lower the sludge accumulation rate could be obtained. So that could be very much depend on the area, but we try to generalize that if we have more emptying, much more, then they could have higher sludge accumulation. Then the concentration could be decreased by at the emptying periods as well. That we also measure certain characteristics of the system, which is every 2 years that also needs would be differentiation. Then the characteristic that we also notice from the investigation from the total solid, volatile solid, fixed solid, and dry solid, that would be interesting to discuss, which is you can notice from the bottom part, the bottom sludge part, you can find that it could be as high as 200,000 milligram per liter of the solids, but compared with the others could be about that 60,000 milligram per liter. So interestingly is that it could be because of the fixed solid that could be very high compared to the others. And we found out that from the commercial plastic treatment packages, means that it could be for the very new household and also very new generation of the house. So it means that for the could be for the higher income people. And then we guess, we don't know the data yet, but we guess that it could be because of the uses of the tissue papers after cleansing. Then they use much more compared with the others. Then that's why the concentration of the solid of this system is quite high. So the highest could be from that the toilet paper, and then the other result that also we try to investigate to ensure that the Faecal sludge can be removed, and then we can use for designing of the emptying facility as well. That rheological properties, including the viscosity, the shear stress, and density. And we found that the highest coming into that the cesspool, double cesspool, and the commercial package tank, which is having a quite high viscosity, means that it is quite difficult to pump it out. So it could be very much that it could be double or triple that once you decide for the pumping system, then for this kind of package tank, then you need a higher pressure for that. And then with that, it could be higher than the wastewater sludge that we need to pump. And then if you need to pump by the simple machine, then you may have a big problem as well if you do not design properly for the pumping system for that, for the viscosity and the shear stress. Then the other compositions or the contaminants that we found out in the septic tank as well, or in the commercial septic tank, is that much more related to the sand, soil, and then many others, as well as the tissue papers and the other solid waste. But we found out that the commercial system is much less compared with the others. The hairs on the others that may come the sand or looking after debris. So there could be another thing is that because of the prefabricated package or the septic tank from the commercial system, it could be easily installed, and then that's why no more sand, no more other debris that come to the sludge. That could be the answers. And then the behaviors of the user, they will not that drop any other solid waste into the toilets compared with the simple system like a cesspool. Then with that, just to conclude our study is that the single cesspool is widely used, and then commercials could be very much more popular. And then we found that more than 10 years old house, they may use the man-made septic tank and the double cesspool, and then the sludge emptying frequency will require for about that 2.5 years, and then average of 1.5. And the interesting part is that the difference in the accumulation rate is that very much depend on the soil types and also the behavior of the people use. And then the last one is that the rheological properties of the thickened bottom sludge can indicate what should be the emptying facilities that for the cesspool, for the septic tank, and for the commercial system. That's the presentation. But just to add on, we just found out the other interesting because sludge management, just by the chance to make a visit to the treatment plant, is that from a new system, so-called Thomtarin service company, that the very new one. And then we found out we are still in another investigation that they have a very good septic tank emptying service trucks with the fleets, and then with the good uniforms and with a good system. They have a very good system to remove the garbage. And then we found lots of that garbage from the fecal sludge, and they use the cover lagoons to produce biogas, and then they have the liquid parts overflow and produce the biosolids as well by using drying base. But the liquid part, they use the active sludge with the wetlands and ponds, and after that you can notice that they use even the UV and then the RO plant to treat the liquid parts, and then they could be reused that the liquid from the fecal sludge, but then not yet sell, not yet drinkable. But in the company, they invested that already, and they invest to further use. But the interesting part is that they can produce enough electricity to operate in this system for the fecal sludge management. And then from that point of view,
you sort of
yes, just the last slide for that. From this kind of septic tank sludge, they can turn these kind of the trucks to be the Mercedes, not the Mercedes, but the Porsche, the supercar. Then it could be the business model for us as an inspiration message for myself. Thank you very much.